welcome back to a Modern Ronin. This video is just going to be a short review of some of the equipment that I've used so far with archery and what my recommendations are. First of all, a book that was recommended to me, and I would definitely recommend to everyone else, Arab Archery. It's got lots of great techniques if you want to start shooting Eastern style archery, and it even has things down to hand positions on ways to finger locks you can use when drawing the bow, and when you're getting into speed shooting, different ways you can hold arrows while still firing arrows so that you don't have to reach for them, they're already in your hand ready to go. Great book, definitely recommended if you want to start Eastern archery. If you're shooting Western style archery, it's not for you. In that regard, when I first got my bow, I did still shoot Western style archery because that's how I originally learned. I learned with Boy Scouts and then, of course, summer camps like Indian camp. And ironically, even at the Indian camp, which was Native Americans, of course, we still shot English longbow recurves and we shot Western style. I haven't really done too much investigation on how Indians shot their bows. I'm not sure if that's accurate, but I always find it strange. Still, Western style archery glove will cover your 3 fingers that you will be using. Most archers use 3, 2 below, 1 above. Some archers will just use 2. It's personal preference, but this is a nice glove. It's very inexpensive. It's good leather. Held up, no marks on my fingers afterward, doesn't slip off. And it's also leather straps leading to an elastic band here to the wrist strap, so that way when you're moving your hand around, I'm not sure if you can see, but that elastic is actually allowing you maneuverability. It's a very nice glove, very inexpensive. If you're shooting Western style, I would recommend it. I will keep a link for all of this stuff in the information below. And then while I was waiting for my thumb ring to arrive, I got a cheaper thumb ring. It's just a simple leather strap. I did try using this a few times, however, I wasn't really sure on the right techniques yet. I haven't tried using it again since. However, when I was just learning with the thumb and trying to figure it out this way with just this guard, I did notice it slipped off a lot. It fell out of position. Even though it has this fastener here, these straps come loose very easily. So you will find yourself readjusting almost after every shot, or just getting frustrated because it doesn't fit right. So I was very glad that I only had to wait a short time for my Mongolian thumb ring. And as you've seen in the videos that I've posted, I really like this thumb ring because, okay, first of all, it has a strap, so you're not going to lose it even if it falls off your thumb. But second of all, that metal piece protecting my thumb, hard metal. I have no fears of getting any wounds from that. This little notch here gives you a place to rest the fingers that you're not using, and it's also where you're going to rest the string, so that while you're pulling, this other notch here is where you're going to rest the arrow. So it really helps you, especially if you're a beginner starting thumb archery, to get form and really just hold and grasp the arrows better for better accuracy, better shots. And it is brass, and sure, I could probably polish it up a little bit, but I'm not looking for something to look fancy. I'm just looking for something that is useful. In regards to protection, when you're using a thumb guard, your other hand is going to be resting the arrow, because with Mongolian horse bows, there's no knock on the bow for you to rest the arrow, so you're actually going to be resting it on your thumb. So I definitely recommend some sort of handguard like this. This is also leather. I've been using it since I started, even when shooting Western style. I'll wear this glove because again, there's no nock on the bow with a Western horse bow, so you need something to rest the arrow on. And as you can see, some of that leather has started to wear away from where I've been resting arrows on the thumb there. So I'm very glad that I've been wearing this, because otherwise that would be my skin wearing away. It's great quality, does not slip off, does the job, and it's very inexpensive. Also, my arm guard, I chose to go with a longer arm guard than you may see on most reviews. Most people wear an arm guard that's probably about half this height. I chose a longer one because I wasn't really familiar with how the bow was going to strike my arm yet. It was a new bow to me, and I just wanted to make sure to be safe. I went one time without it while I was waiting for it to arrive, and I wound up with a bruise which started around here, came all the way down, and came back up, and that was after an hour of shooting. And then, of course, there were a few marks up here from when I had overextended, and the bow would hit my arm up here instead of following through. So I definitely recommend this, especially if you're a beginner and you're not quite sure where the string is going to hit your arm yet. Now that I've been shooting for a while, it always hits here, pretty much, unless I, like I said, overextend by accident, and then you might catch your bicep. But with this one, it's got 4 straps, and it bends at the elbow, so I can cover both areas. So even if I do accidentally overextend, it'll catch the guard instead of my arm, because believe me, it bites, and it'll leave marks and bruises, and then you have some interesting explanations as to why you have hard, sharp lines going down your arm, or just a giant bruise, which looks like a birthmark. So wear the protection. You don't have to explain bruises. And also, of course, I can't forget the bow. This is my Mongolian horse bow. Right now it's unstrung. Of course, if you're using a recurve bow, you do not want to string it unless you're using it. If you're not using it, take the string off. It'll preserve the bow. And in regards to arrows, I did start with carbon arrows because they were cheaper by about $20 than what was recommended to me. And they said they were strong enough for a 45-pound draw bow, but I used them, and within the first few hours I had already broken 2 or 3 arrows, and then after 4 to 5 hours I was down to 5 arrows that were fireable out of 12. And I did have one snap in my face, which was very dangerous, and it made it very apparent to me that I needed to just spend the extra money and get the proper size arrow for the proper bow. The danger is when you're letting loose an arrow, and it's a carbon arrow, they're going to be much thinner than these wooden turkey feather arrows. So not only is the shaft thinner, but it's made out of a high carbon, not wood. And when that breaks, you may not notice it right away. So if you miss your target, your arrow hits, it'll snap. Wooden arrows, if they hit hard enough, they'll just snap in half. Carbon arrows, when they hit something, it'll fracture the carbon, and you won't be able to see it. So unless you sit there after each and every fire of your carbon arrows and listen, bend it and listen, and if you hear any cracking in the shaft, don't try to fire it. I did not do this because I was not aware of this issue. And I had fired one. I'm sure it had ricocheted a few times and probably had a fracture in the shaft. However, when I drew my bow back, and as soon as I let loose, all the power that the bow put into that arrow snaps it right in your face. So I did get smacked in the face with a carbon arrow. I no longer have them. I did discard them already. But this is a broken wooden arrow, just for an example. So the longer piece will typically smack you in the face, and the shorter piece which breaks since it still has all that force behind it, could very easily travel right into your hand, and that's several surgeries trying to pull out the carbon fibers. I was very lucky not to get wounded that day. So I immediately went home and ordered turkey feathers, wooden shaft, and ever since then, I've been using these arrows. I have, so far in 3 months, broken 2 arrows. One, obviously this one. I missed my target completely. It ricocheted off a few trees and snapped. So that's completely my fault. I can't fault the maker. It's definitely a great make. The only other one that is broken so far, still fired, but the knock did break after use. I did hear some reviews saying that these strings would come undone and this would happen. That's why I covered these strings here in nail polish, because it would keep the strings in place. However, this one, I don't know what happened. I guess it was just a weaker knock, maybe, but maybe I just beat it up too much over time. It happens. I've still got 10 good arrows. I used bright orange so that they're easier to find when I miss them, because it's not a natural color that you'll see in the grass, so it should jump out at you easier. Because the strings themselves, when they come, are black, so they will blend in and be harder to find. You'll probably find them easiest by looking for the shaft of the arrow, because most sticks are not going to be this tan. They'll be a darker brown, or they'll be, rotting. So you'll be able to pick them out. And in regards to quivers, I did purchase a quiver which is a back quiver. It is also usable as a hip quiver, but it was meant as a back quiver. I do regret this decision. I did know that hip quivers were more common nowadays, but I just wanted a back quiver just because I wanted it, so that's what I got. But when it came down to actually using a back quiver and speed archery, it's definitely helpful to have the arrows at your side rather than behind you. Because although it may seem like a more fluid motion, often you'll find yourself searching for the arrow and wasting time. And with speed archery, if you can just grab them from your hip and you've already got 3 in your hand to start with, you grab them by 3 at a time, much faster. And also much more maneuverable. When running around with a back quiver on, just searching for arrows, hopping over trees, you can feel the arrows bouncing, and sometimes they will even fall out of the quiver completely. So having them in the hip quiver, if you feel them bouncing, I've never had one fall out in the hip quiver, but also it is much easier just to quickly put your hand down onto the nocks of the arrows and hold them in the quiver while you're running, and you've still got a free hand to clear any brushes out of your way, or in my case, to have your wazukashi or machete out to clear a brush and try to search for your arrows which have missed, because they often will be buried under leaves. If you're not in a range, when they land, they will either stick in a tree, or you will find them buried under leaves, sometimes in mud. But the most useful tool for me to find them in the woods after I've missed is a rake, believe it or not. Just a plastic rake, rake the yard, and those arrows will show up. You will find the black holes that they are disappearing to, I promise you. And it is worth it to go find your arrows. Don't leave them behind, especially if you're breaking arrows. Find the broken pieces. This is the only pieces that I kept of this arrow. Yeah, of course, there was more to it, but find the broken pieces. It's only for everyone's safety, because no one wants to be stepping on a archery point arrow, nor does anyone want to be stepping on obviously already broken and shards that we are aware of. So if we know it's out there, it's your responsibility to clean up after yourself, just for your safety and the safety of everyone else around you. That's my reviews on the archery equipment that I have so far.